Or about the Ukraine war, there's a new report from Reuters I'm reading from here that says Ukraine could get long-range missiles armed with U.S. cluster bombs. Now, you've been opposed to us arming the Ukrainians with cluster bombs in particular because, they're considered a human rights atrocity in most parts of the world. Is there any progress on trying to push forward any legislation that would block the administration from making these kinds of moves?
Well, I voted on the amendment to try to block it. I was in the small minority of House members, probably 50, 60 votes. So there's overwhelming support in the Congress for the administration. I mean, we had the vote in the House. The challenge is I don't think that those cluster bombs are making a difference on the ground, because what you have is Putin has put landmines in all of the Donbass area. It's very, very sad, but the counteroffensive, because of that, has been very difficult. And I'm opposed to cluster bombs, but I also don't think that it effectively is reducing the artillery disadvantage that Ukraine is at. And so I don't see why we would compromise such fundamental principles where we have the moral high ground by giving cluster bombs that aren't being very effective.
So we're at a crossroads here, Congressman. The president has asked for $25 billion more. He's attached it to the disaster relief program. How do you expect to vote for that? Do you have any organized effort against it? You've previously spoken about diplomacy. What's your thinking about this extra $25 billion?
I will support it. I know some of your viewers will not like the answer, but I'm always transparent. I mean, I think we have to support Ukraine while we also seek a just peace. And if we don't support them now, we're giving license for Putin to make more gains into Ukrainian territory. And I clearly believe that Putin was morally wrong and wrong under an international law. Now, if we can support Ukraine and if they can continue to make some progress, it's been hard fought progress, but some progress, then at the same time we should be engaging our allies, France, India, others, to see a just peace.
But we haven't seen that just peace or a lot of the engagement with the allies, and instead we've actually seen consistent escalation. I mean, in considering also in the $25 billion, as I understand it, there's no checks that Congress has been able to write in, as by your own admission here, about long-range missiles, about cluster bombs, or any of this. So isn't this just a blank check for the administration to eventually just give Ukraine whatever it wants, with very little limitations in terms of their use of our own arms and our ammunition?
Well, I think President Biden has actually been fairly judicious in saying he doesn't want to escalate the war into Russian territory.
Ukrainian drones have vaulted into Russia itself, hitting the Kremlin, warplanes, and Moscow high-rises. Officially, Ukraine does not acknowledge these attacks.
The drone strikes in Russia are being done on your orders?
No.
Not on your orders.
Well,
how is this happening?
We don't shoot at the territory of the Russian Federation.
He has not engaged in any way the United States military, either our Air Force or our Army. And he's been careful to say, Ukraine, look, you can take back your territory, but don't attack Russia. And my view is that he has those safeguards.
He has said those things, but Ukraine has continued to attack Russia, including drone strikes in the heart of Moscow. So I guess what we're trying to figure out is, what is the end game? What is the limiting principle? Is there a point in time where you start to threaten to withhold this aid so that you can begin to bring the parties to the table? How do you ever get to any sort of a negotiated resolution here? Because, this has obviously been just an absolute catastrophe. The number of lives that are lost and the seemingly endless nature of it is horrifying to watch.
It is horrifying. The end game is that Russia move out of the territory which they took in the Donbass. that is, they're illegally there. They have occupied that territory. They violated Ukrainian sovereignty. And we have to figure out how do we prevail on them to do that. But at the same time, we are trying to de-escalate the conflict, and there can be efforts at working towards de-escalation, working towards ceasefires in different parts of the country, while we hold firm on Ukrainian sovereignty.
So the Russians signed a peace agreement in March of 2022, which we just found out about, and Zelensky initialed it. And the Russians were actually withdrawing their troops in March of 2022 and April of 2022. And President Biden sent Boris Johnson to Kiev to blow up that agreement.